Welcome. My name is Corinne Waldo. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Boulder Chamber, and I want to thank you for joining us today to learn best practices, the requirements, all of the things you need to know to open more safely as the rules change. I want to thank all our county partners, including the Chambers and Economic Development, and I want to thank Boulder County Public Health for making these webinars possible. Please submit your questions today via the Q&A feature that is at the bottom of the screen, and I'll get those asked for you throughout the program. But we're going to try to save most of them to the end. There will be a few poll questions that pop up throughout the program or towards the end, and we ask that you submit answers to those because they provide valuable feedback to Boulder County Public Health. At this time, I'm going to hand off to Lane Drager with Boulder County Public Health.
Thank you, Corinne, and thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate everybody's continued engagement, and we're excited for today because we have some insights and maybe what the next steps are going to be, and Zach's going to really jump into that as we go through, but we're also going to touch a little bit more on face coverings. Again, the safer at home, a little bit of refreshers for some folks, and then if people haven't been on calls in the past, we'll catch you up to speed. And really focusing again on the resources we've developed to help support you. And then at the bulk of the time, really focusing on your questions and trying to answer as many as we can. And if we can't, we will make sure to share those back out through Corinne and all the channels. So again, just a quick refresher of where we're at. But again, I think that May 25th is the one we want to focus most on. But we're still operating under Safer at Home, where we have very limited operations for the retail food, restaurants specifically. We are, though, expecting that May 25th is our big benchmark. We're expecting more things to be relaxed from the state level, specifically for this sector in restaurants. And then, again, more steps into the future. So again, our long-term look, you know, we've talked about this week in and week out, this is still a really long-term effort. We really are in this phase until we see significant protection within our community. And that specifically would come in the form of a vaccine, possibly a treatment that's developed, but really we're looking at needing that significant immunity throughout our community before we can fully relax all these orders. So months and months. So I wanted to show a little schematic. Hopefully this isn't too challenging for folks, but we have a lot of data on our Boulder County website, specifically related to what we're tracking. And this is one of those benchmarks, and it's looking at how many new cases we're seeing on a 5-day average. And so obviously the ideal for this is we want that number as low as possible. So as you can see, there were definitely some spikes along the way, but our efforts and certainly your support and the efforts are working. So we can really see that our 5-day averages are dropping. So this is significant because we only have a certain amount of staff capacity to investigate new cases. So if we start to see those numbers really go through the roof, it'll be beyond our capacity to stay on top of. So this is one of those metrics that we look at to make sure we have enough resources to handle what's happening in our community. And right now things will look very good. So again, Zach, I don't know if you want me to hand off here or at the next slide, but I'll just do this one while I've got it up. But this is just, again, reminder that we don't want everybody going back to normal yet at this point. While our numbers look really good, it's because everybody's efforts to really social distance and stay at home as much as possible are working. COVID has not changed to be less contagious. It's just we are making sure people that are sick are not infecting others to the best of our ability as a community, and that the face coverings is a critical piece of that moving forward, as well as, again, the 6-foot social distancing. I'm going to hand this off to Zach now, and I think he's going to kind of walk you through the rest and really dive into some of the specifics.
Hi, everybody. This is Zach Lusgarten. I work with Boulder County Public Health in the food safety program. And I just want to make everybody aware of some of the updates that are coming down the pipe. So the first would be a proposal to expand seating to outdoor spaces for the summer of 2020. And then obviously the big one, the tentative guidance for reopening. I just want to make a note that the tentative guidance for reopening is an expectation of mine, but this is not official in any way. So we should have more information from the state later today about that guidance. But I'll start with the patios. So that outdoor seating for the summer of 2020, it would be a temporary program. And it would look like, I'm going to base this on Denver's model. And this is what Denver has at this point, and this is what Boulder is looking at as well. So it would go through the summer dining season to September. Hours of operation that Denver has put in place, it would be outdoor patios open till 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then 11 p.m. I can't see the screen here, but Fridays and Saturdays. Allowed uses on the patio. This would be for sit-down dining and customer pickup service. And here's a list of things that it would not be. So it's super important to understand that it's not a standing area. Live music would not be promoted in these spaces, or outdoor games, music over speakers, movies, broadcast sports, loudspeaker call systems, and pets, unless it's a service animal. So those would be the restrictions of these outdoor seating arrangements that would allow for just more space for people to come back to restaurants and feel comfortable dining. And with that proposal, we're waiting for the orders to come down May 25th to see where we're at. But this is the proposal, and this is something that is on the table and very likely to happen when restaurants continue for dine-in service. So here we are with the draft restaurant dine-in guidance for Workspaces. I'll break it down into Workspaces, employees, and customers, just as we did with our checklists earlier in our webinars. So the first thing that is striking would be that it would be reduced capacity. We're not sure what the capacity will be based on, but we're assuming that it would probably be based on fire code. And again, because we're expanding our space, the possibility is there of expanding our space into these outdoor areas that may allow for some more leniency with getting those numbers of folks to your restaurant. So in outdoor dining, we'd be looking at 8 feet of spacing between tables. That is the proposal, the draft proposal. And all employees would wear facial coverings and gloves, same as we are now. And then you'd be doing sanitization and deep cleaning of all shared surfaces between seatings. In the indoor seating environment, it would be the same as outdoor, but we would also look at proper ventilation. So making sure that your HVAC system is operating properly as per OSHA guidelines. More on Workspaces. So party sizes would be 6 or fewer. And the effort really here is to reduce large numbers coming in, specifically anyone from congregating inside or outside the establishment. And so the way that we do that is we encourage reservations. Again, draft guidance here, and it's guidance. So we're not sure if this is requirement or guidance, but you'd be looking at reservations only, no communal seating. So those long tables would not be ideal. There would be no self-service stations or buffets. So it's not to say that there wouldn't be a buffet, but it wouldn't be a self-service buffet. It could probably look like an employee serving station more so than a self-service buffet. There would be no self-seat options. That's what I foresee. And for bar seating, it would essentially not happen unless it was being used for regular food table eating situation. So in those circumstances, again, we'd be looking at 6 or fewer, spacing, proper spacing. Within the workspace or within the restaurant, we'd be looking at floor markings still, very similar to what we already had. And then placing pylons, table tents, or caution tape, something like that eliminates seating that would be closer than 6 feet. So not allowing people to congregate, in other words, so that we're making sure that they're 8 feet apart. More on workspaces, because this is the big change. Signs, as we've spoken about in every one of our webinars, signs that I'm sure Corinne will be happy to share during this presentation or after, that notify the customer that if they're sick, they should not enter, and proper hygienic practices. Another one that we see probably coming is removing or closing all games and dance floors. Again, it's just an effort to socially distance, and those things would prove extremely difficult in those environments. Single-use condiments and napkins would be encouraged. Cleaning and disinfecting any shared objects that thoroughly between uses, though. So if there are salt shakers, pepper shakers, things like that, that weren't single use, they would have to be cleaned and disinfected between uses. So again, cleaning and disinfecting, we're talking about increasing that frequency, and possibly posting cleaning logs. That's something that we would see just improving confidence from customers. Again, using disposable single-use item or single-use menus or menu boards are recommended, and creating online menus would even be better. So where they might be able to scan a barcode and go to the menu online, that would be ideal. Like I said, providing single-use or single-serving condiments. Restrooms. We've gotten a lot of questions about restrooms in the safer at home phase. As we move to dine-in, restrooms would be something that would need to be, that we're seeing possibly being cleaned, sanitized every 30 minutes. Stalls being blocked off, because that's another area that folks could be in close proximity. So we would want that 6 feet between patrons. Might require actually blocking off a restroom stall. And then providing hand sanitizer at check-in tables and throughout the venue, possibly on the tables even. Draft restaurant dine-in guidance for employees remains very similar to safer at home and in our checklist that we've had up to this point. Conducting daily temperature checks and monitoring symptoms in employees, logging those results, and then using the CDPHE symptom tracker if we have any folks that are sick. We'll talk about outbreaks at the end of this presentation. 6 feet of distancing whenever possible within the kitchen. So we'll talk a little bit more about how that happens in a few slides from now. Gloves and facial coverings, nothing new here, but our customer-facing folks should be wearing gloves and a facial covering at all times. Folks in the back should be wearing gloves when it's necessary for food safety. So with all ready-to-eat foods. And facial coverings, as it was stated in Public Health Order 2026 many weeks ago, says that essential employees must wear facial coverings. So we've gotten that question back and forth, thinking that not all folks needed to wear facial coverings in the restaurant, and that is unfortunately not true. We need to wear facial coverings at all times. It doesn't need to be surgical grade, but it does need to be a facial covering of some sort. More on employees. We'd just be looking at frequency of hand washing. We're always washing our hands a lot in food industry, but even more so now. And it would be including when you change gloves between tasks. Again, these are things that we've always done. But before you don the new pair of gloves, we need to make sure that the hands are washed prior to that. More recommendations would be to stagger shifts so that we're not getting unnecessary folks in the restaurant at times where it's overcrowded. So you really want to maintain the distancing. Simplified menu. What this would do is allow for more quick service and less folks in the kitchen, the confined spaces. We would discourage, if not require that there's no family meals. It's very common in restaurants for all staff to have family meals. This would be important to do away with. And then in the back, we all have drink cups. We always talk about drink cups in restaurants, and we would not want you to bring your bottle from home. We'd be looking at single-use cups. A lot of single-use things here. I understand it's not very sustainable, but that's where we are right now. So moving on to customers. Reservations. Those would be required to help in contact tracing, and there may even be like a sign-in type mechanism moving forward that would, you know, if there were any incidents, that there would be that quick contact tracing of folks that were at the restaurant in the time in question if there was a COVID positive situation. Contactless payment options whenever possible. Obviously, the less back and forth of handling of money, et cetera, the better. And then asking customers to wait outside of the restaurant and away from the outside dining areas until they're seated. So as folks come back to our restaurants, we want to make sure that we can handle them and that we're not allowing them to stand in confined spaces. Again, that kind of goes to the next point, but it would be sit down only. No standing or congregating in a bar area near the entrance or exit or any interior spaces. Obviously, we're still encouraging curbside pickup and delivery options. If that's something that's working for you and you're thriving and you don't feel like that these other points that I'm talking about are doable at this point, or you feel like you're good where you're at, then we would encourage you to continue that model. Facial coverings should be worn by customers when not eating or drinking. Now that's something that again, this is all very tentative and we're not sure what that would look like, but some of the questions that have come in are very specific to facial coverings, and in this situation, you know, we'll see what comes from the state here later today. But you want to make accommodations for individuals that are unable to adhere to masking and things of that nature as well. So perhaps you ask for them to do takeout instead. So here we have some guidance and tools that have been created by Boulder County to date. And I want to highlight a couple of these. You'll see that to the right side of your screen, there's a safer at home checklist for grocery and food service. That has taken us up to this point. Later today, we'll find out more from the state. And again, everything that's been up to this point in this presentation is tentative and where we think it's going to go. But once official guidance is given to us, then we'll be able to create new checklists for the next phase. Some things will stay in place, some things will evolve. On the left side of the page, I want you to just pay special attention to the sample face covering script for businesses. That's on our webpage, and it's something I want to show you here, as we've gotten a lot of questions about how to have that conversation with folks as they enter your restaurant or grocery store or you know, facility. And I won't read it for you, but essentially what we've got going on here is you introduce yourself and you see that either folks are or aren't wearing a mask, and if they are, it's great. You thank them and appreciate, you know, their willingness to help. And if they don't, there's some outs. So if they do have medical conditions or a mental health condition that would prevent them from doing so, really just want to you want to leave it at that. But if there's no real good reason, you may ask them to not come in, and that's a very contentious piece and difficult for folks to ask. But signage will help you with that, and we have some signs that we'll share with this presentation as well. And as you see at the bottom, if it does get to a point where you have folks that are just being difficult, then you do always have the option of calling law enforcement. Now, we can't provide any legal advice to you, and it's important to note that compliance with these orders is required. The requirements are frequently changing. We're trying our best to keep up with those ever-evolving orders. Like I said, later today, we'll find out more about the next phases, and officially the 25th would be when anything changes and we go to the next step. But if you do have questions about compliance, it would be something that we can only help you to a certain point, and we would recommend that you contact an attorney if you have like extremely complicated questions or very specific. So as I spoke earlier about outbreaks and the need for reservations and contact tracings, the state of Colorado has now said that 2 or more confirmed or suspected cases within 14 days of COVID-19 is considered an outbreak. So they do have an outbreak page on the state website, CDPHE's website, where you can see all the outbreaks in Colorado to this point. And it changes, I think it's updated every day at 4 o'clock. But if you are aware of 2 or more suspected cases within your facility, please contact us. It is I won't say that it's, to this point, there were 6 reportable illnesses that you needed to contact the health department about. Now with COVID-19, you also are required to contact us. It's just going to get the ball rolling and allow us to contact those folks and make sure that we're taking proper precautions for isolation and quarantine. So just that's where we become super spreaders, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Where to go for information? Boulder County's website, you see here, it's COVID-19 business and COVID-19 Colorado. There's also the Chamber of Commerce, Small Business Development Center. CRA would be another great place for this sector to go. And then whatever city you are in, there may be more stringent guidelines than others. It would never be less stringent, but it could be more stringent. For example, Louisville may have a couple additional pieces to their face covering requirements. Here's our industry office hour sessions. You are in the food service on Tuesday webinar, but there are also all these sectors that we provide throughout the week. And here is our complaint hotline and any questions that you might have. It's covidbiz@bouldercounty.org. And our call center is open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. All right, now I just want to open it up to Corinne. We have some discussion questions that we'd love to get a poll on, and then we'll open it up to Q&A after that.
Great, thank you, Zach. Well, I'm sure all the restaurants are anxiously awaiting that final guidance this afternoon. I appreciate you giving some thought to what it potentially could look like. So we have a couple Q&A questions, but at first I'm going to launch a poll for those of the participants on the call. I'm going to ask that you, give us a sense as to, in your curbside pickup, what % of customers are wearing face masks when they come. So if you could answer that. And while you're answering that, I'm going to ask Zach a question. Where do bars fit into the equation, specifically breweries that do not serve food?
Maybe we'll bring Lane in on this too. We would want to discuss that with liquor licensing. But yeah, thoughts, Lane?
We don't know what the scope of the final state guidance is going to be, whether it will expand beyond just dine-in restaurants. Certainly, if there's ability to adhere to kind of the protocols that Zach said, it may be option, but the bar areas within restaurants right now are specifically closed. So if the bar doesn't have, the seating to support 8-foot separation and those types of things, it will be more difficult to see any of that in operation. But we don't know what the scope of what facilities will be allowed to follow these protocols or not at this point.
Okay. So thank you everybody for answering that question. Thanks Lane for providing the answer to the Q&A. I'm going to launch another poll. This one is, how would you rate customer behavior at maintaining at least 6 feet physical distance from other customers? And while you're answering that, I have a question. Is entertainment allowed while dining, like a piano player?
Yeah, so we're going to wait for that guidance today. initial signs point to probably not, because entertainment, as we know, is going to pull in numbers, and we're going to the entertainment areas, say the dance floor, would not be open in this next phase. So that's where I'm leaning towards. Again, 3 o'clock today, we hope to really find out some more of that information. I know it's frustrating to hear that we're just waiting.
And we at least know the idea of outdoor entertainment is likely not going to be feasible. Indoor, you would be sacrificing space to have diners, so that would be just another piece. If indoor entertainment, like it was the example of a piano player, that area with additional 8-foot separation is going to eat up into your floor space. So that's just another consideration. So but as of right now, we don't have any indoor entertainment guidance to share.
Okay, I'm going to ask another question and then I'll launch another poll after that. Should we use single-use silverware for dine-in?
I would just say that's your option. Right now, we require all the flatware to be washed, rinsed, and sanitized between uses, and that is effective means of addressing COVID virus. So all of those plates, cups, don't have to be disposable. I think we were looking at, again, the cups that are back in the food preparation area where staff are using those. Those are the ones that we were more concerned about, making sure that those aren't just brought from home because they may not be washed, rinsed, and sanitized and brought into the facility as a potential exposure piece. But all your washing right now, it should be addressing all of those risks.
And just to add to that, if you are setting tables, you should pre-wrap those utensils. So pre-wrap them either with a single-use napkin or with a linen that will be laundered after each use.
So you talk about guidance later today. How long will it take for Boulder County Public Health to kind of turn that around and for us to be able to get that information out to restaurants?
What we get today is still going to be a draft. So we want to share that so that we can get feedback. So we will share that. If we get it today, we'll share it today because we really want to hear people's feedback. The state is not going to finalize this until next week. So this is an opportunity for feedback and to share what people think about the different protocols, ask those kind of questions that you're already asking. Can we do some of these things that haven't been addressed so far? So that's the intent, but the finalizing of the guidance is based on when the state finalizes it. So as soon as we see that, again, we will turn that around next week.
So I'll plan to, when you have information, I'll plan to send to the restaurant group that's attended these calls and through our partners, including the recording of this video and whatever guidance, I'll send that to the group once we have it, as soon as you're ready to share and as soon as you get it. All right, another question. The next 2 poll questions are a little bit more lengthy, so I'm going to ask a couple more questions that have come in. There's conflicting information on people not having masks, for example, for a medical condition, and also refusing service and telling them to leave. They run counter to each other. What do we do?
Let me go back to that script just to assist our conversation here. Not sure if we can see it, but if they share that they have medical reasons that allows them to not wear one, then you allow them in. You don't want to go down that route of kind of going up against the ADA. Not a path that I would recommend at all. Put you in a weird spot there. But if there's no reason that they give, medical condition or mental health condition perhaps, then you may ask them to leave. And that's the guidance that we have. And the mandate in Boulder County says that all patrons should be wearing facial coverings in public, and especially in confined spaces such as your restaurant.
Okay. Where can someone find the ventilation information from OSHA?
It's not out yet. We hoped in that draft guidance that comes out today, they have a link to it. Again, I think if you're, my thought is that if your HVAC is in good working condition, you're going to meet OSHA requirements. So you have proper air handling and turnover rate within your facility, then you should have no problems. Lane, any thoughts on that in addition to just regular maintenance and
yeah,
good
it's really challenging. I don't think you're going to find very specific details on OSHA's sites either from what I've looked at. I guess good guides are if you have to prop doors and windows open to ventilate your facility because otherwise it becomes like the entire place is an oven, you probably don't have adequate ventilation. So those are just rough guides. Is your system actually bringing in enough makeup air, keeping the space cool when it's hot, otherwise would otherwise be hot because of all the ovens and grills and things like that. So those are good indicators to know, is our system actually adequate? Are hoods working the way they should? Are they pulling enough air out, that hot air and that potentially grease-laden air? So those are the best guides that we can probably give for you. If those have been maintained and are working, you don't need to add any additional equipment. If they're not functioning, you should have someone come out and help service them and make sure you get air balancing and that sort of stuff for your specific spaces.
Okay, so I'm gonna get to the patios in just a minute, but here's a question. If two people call in sick saying they have a cough and fever, which could be flu or random illness, are we looking at being shut down upon reporting this?
It's unlikely. We certainly want you to work with us. We would look to see, is this actually COVID or not? Are these confirmed cases or not? Again, we're starting to really head out of our season where we have a lot of other respiratory diseases going on. So in the summer, obviously people with flu-like symptoms, it is more likely now to be COVID than it was months ago when we had a lot of different respiratory conditions going on. But that being said, it doesn't guarantee that it is. So it doesn't mean even if you have 2 cases that your facility is shut down. You know, we're going to sort through all the pieces of the puzzle, potentially have to do additional cleaning, but that doesn't mean the place just gets shut down as a de facto. We really just want to mitigate the risks, look at who else was exposed do they need to potentially have any other steps taken, but it doesn't mean the facilities are closed for even weeks or days. You know, it's really going to be dependent on what's happening there. Is this actually a big outbreak or not?
Okay. Does 8-foot separation of tables apply to the interior as well?
Yeah. So right now that's the draft tentative guidance that we're hearing is 8 feet. It had been 6 feet, so we'll learn more as we go, but the recommendation at this point is 8 feet interior and exterior. So on patios and in dine-in facilities.
And what I've heard is sometimes that's also to allow table plus the waiter or waitress distance between the other table as well. So if sense. Okay, is it the city or county decision as to the limits of where we can place tables, like the sidewalks and parking spots outside of our standard patio?
I mean, that would likely be your city. I mean, so I think what Zach talked about for Pearl Street in Boulder, that's the city changing and potentially turning that all into pedestrian mall to allow for outdoor seating. But yeah, if you currently don't have sidewalk seating and you're wanting to try to expand, you're going to need to work with your city to see, or municipality to see if that's at all allowed. Depending on how much you're increasing your seating capacity. Again, I doubt that anybody has ability to increase this dramatically, but if you're suddenly, you know, really increasing to suddenly be over 100 people, even with 8-foot spacing, then there would be a trigger probably for Boulder County to also look at what you're doing in your license category. But outside of that, yeah, you're going to need to work with your municipalities if you're going to encroach on city sidewalks or spaces to start to try to use them.
So I'm not sure you can answer this question, but it relates to the same item. It's around the beer and wine licensing. If we're serving beer and wine and our neighbor also has a license, could we share patios to expand seating options with their permission?
I would probably put that back to your liquor licensing authority to see does that trigger any issues for them. Certainly if one facility has a beer and wine license and the other does not, I would doubt that they would allow you to share space and serve across businesses. Otherwise, for our purposes, if you can maintain all the requirements that eventually are put in place, I don't know that it matters, how the seating goes, if it's a shared patio or a non-shared patio. So we wouldn't necessarily take exception to that. It would just be back to your liquor licensing authorities and then meeting all the requirements that are put forward for outdoor dining.
So to clarify, Boulder County is providing the requirements for the safer dining, those types of requirements, and your city would be the one that would be kind of guiding the usage of parking lots and sidewalks and liquor licensing, because those are the authorities on those.
Yeah, I think unless you're in unincorporated Boulder County, then Boulder County does also handle those licenses.
Okay. So more information from City Council, at least in Boulder, will be coming out soon as to what they're looking at doing for both the liquor side as well as the sidewalks. Could we do a drive-up entertainment option, like a drive-up movie in our parking lot while dining?
I think there were specific entertainment prohibitions. Otherwise, a drive-up meeting the requirements of 8-foot separation between the dining. I don't know that it requires you to be in a table versus in your car. So there could be some drive-up options, again, meeting all the requirements, but right now what we're expecting is entertainment will be for the most part prohibited for those outdoor venues.
Okay. And then one more question, and then we'll ask to see if there's any more, and then I'm going to share signage and a marketplace with individuals, and we have the last 2 polls. Are restaurants allowed to sell salads at this time?
Yeah, as long as you're taking appropriate precautions. As I said earlier, you should really look at simplifying your menu in order to just have less folks in your space. But no, there's nothing that would prevent you from selling a salad. We're not going to tell you what you can and can't make. It's just make it in a safe manner. And that's just general food safety principles, right? Gloves with ready-to-eat foods, hand washing, things of that nature. But no, salads are on the menu.
Okay, but maybe a self-serve salad bar might be what people are hearing.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll wait for the guidance, but self-serve buffets are going to be something that if there was an employee there to manage the situation, we could see that happening. But it's looking unlikely that any kind of self-serve situation is going to be allowed in this next phase.
Okay. And then we just got something in the chat that says that maybe that drive-up option will be something that we can vet with your business events liaison once the guidance comes out a little bit more. I launched another poll about what is most stressful, or if anything, for your staff about the face covering and physical distancing requirements. There's a list of pre-selected items in there, and you can select as many as you like, or as many as you feel are actually accurate. I'm also going to, I'm going to unshare your screen real quick. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share mine. And I'm going to share a marketplace that we've mentioned previously, but Energized Colorado is a statewide marketplace that has been created to help businesses find things like PPE and supplies, and it just went live. So on this site, it's Energized Colorado. You can get hand sanitizer, masks, gloves, and other items. The other thing that we've sent out to everybody are the signage. And so this signage includes things like, we added a few signs which are do not enter if you're not wearing a mask. Things like hand washing, do not enter if you're sick, and so forth. So those are all the resources, some of the resources that we send out via the emails. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing because we have a couple more questions that came in. And Zach and Lane, when the final guidance comes out next Monday or Tuesday, what should we guesstimate the reopen date to be from that time? 1 week, 2 weeks, more?
Yeah, I think any of those are a guess. It may be that week. It might be the next week. I'm not sure. We certainly expect the governor to put timelines in addition to the guidance of what is required of when people can start doing that. Again, we're expecting to follow the state guidance, so we're not expecting to add additional weeks on that as Boulder County. So, but we're not sure what the governor is going to decide, if that will go into effect the next day, the next week. So it is totally a guess.
So next Tuesday's call, where we have the restaurants at 1 o'clock next Tuesday, will be a very valuable time to really look at that guidance, look at the timeline, and to help you prepare no matter how long that timeline is.
Absolutely.
All right, one more question. That is it 8 feet from the table edge to table edge, or 8 feet between the diners?
I would assume the diners.
I think
Yeah.
right now the draft says table to table.
Oh.
So it's probably then, ideally you have at least 6 feet between the people then, but it would make sense to start thinking about your orientation to minimize having people back to back, that suddenly if people are scooting away could get them too close to each other. So, but again, we're not sure what it will finalize at, but you're going to really want to make sure you have adequate spacing. That I think is a better feedback to me, is thinking about how they make sure that there's no seating that's back to back, so people could suddenly be less than 6 feet away.
Okay. All right, I'm going to launch one last poll, and this poll is about what resources and support might be most helpful for your business at this time. We have answers about federal relief funds, more public health information, trainings. If we could get some guidance on that, that'd be wonderful. As we're doing that, do either one of you have anything to close? Oh, we have another question that came in. Is there marketing available to combat the please stay away, but also please come eat with us dichotomy that's going on? I don't know if you guys can answer that, or if that's something we can bring back to the other chambers and downtown business associations, our visitors bureaus, and talk about marketing campaigns that are going on. Do you have anything you'd like to add about that?
I think getting the information out is always important of where the next iteration, so people understand what is allowed and what isn't. It certainly helps us that the general public know these next phases, that if restaurants are allowed to have outdoor dining, that the general public doesn't call us and complain about having outdoor dining, which is legal. So I think those marketing are important for a lot of reasons. I don't know that we will be doing extensive marketing. We don't really have marketing budgets, but we will certainly be doing press releases with what is happening with the orders, and then sharing all of that with the chambers and economic development partners to continue to get that information out in everyone's hands.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, it's been on a lot of conversations that we've had among the different chambers and economic development. We meet weekly or 4 times a week in some cases to talk about how do we balance both the economy and the health of both our employees as well as our customers. So I'm going to end this poll. And in a brew pub, one last question. In a brew pub, can a growler be refilled, or must it be a new bottle?
I can take that. What we saw out of previous guidance, and I don't think anything has changed, is that it must be a new growler that's provided by the brewery or pub. And so that's been in place for several weeks at this point. I think you can find more information about that on CRA's website. They're gonna have some very good guidance that Corinne, I'll send over to you if we could pass it along.
Perfect. And with that, no more questions, no more polls. Lane, do you have something you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just was going to add, I don't think it precludes people from returning growlers that then the facility wash, rinses, and sanitizes. But yes, as Zach said, you couldn't bring one in and then hand it over to be refilled. It would need to have gone through that wash, rinse, and sanitize step. So yes, people could return them, but they wouldn't get that one right away. That would have to go through that wash, rinse, and sanitize step. But again, I just wanted to close with thanking the chambers and all our economic partners for continuing to host these. Thank everyone for their continued engagement. Please continue to share questions, thoughts as we get out the information. Give us feedback that we can share to the state to help shape that final guidance.
And as soon as I get guidance from you, the tape recording of this webinar and any additional links and resources that we've mentioned, I'll get an email out to anybody that's registered for any of these. And I'll include the posters. The posters can be printed on 8.5 by 11, even though they come in as large. You can print them on 8.5 by 11. It's just such a printer to 8.5 by 11. Other than that, please share any feedback, ask any questions during this time, and we'll get the information out to you as soon as possible. Thank everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.